Hey everyone, my name's Elliott, and in this video I'm going to show you a super simple way to get started with meal prep. Alright, step one, finding your macros. There are a lot of free resources online that can get you in the ballpark of how much protein, carbohydrates, and fat that you should be eating for the day. That'll just give you a rough guideline on how much food to eat, and then you can portion it out accordingly. I have my macros here, but please don't use those because everyone is different with activity and everything like that. Alright, step two, Tupperware. Where are we going to be housing all of this food after we cook it? So there are a couple different options. The first option I recommend is going on the slightly cheaper side with the plastic that you can order from Amazon. You can get them here in a day or two, and they're really nice, and if they break or crack or you lose them, it's not that big of a deal, or if you decide that meal prep isn't quite for you. They come in like little divider things, or also these containers like this. All right. Once you get comfortable with meal prep and you're feeling like this is a long-term solution, then I recommend getting some glassware ones that are a lot nicer and they'll hold up and everything. One thing to note about these are, though, when you start meal prepping for multiple days, 4 and 5 days, if you have 4 meals a day, it can become pretty heavy to carry around or a pretty big load on the refrigerator. All right, in terms of weight. Step 3, cooking the protein. Once you figure out how many grams of protein that you should be eating each day, depending on how many days that you want to meal prep for, you multiply it by that number. For example, for today, we're going to be cooking for 3 days. So when you're starting out, I recommend only picking 1 to 2 protein sources. Just be careful if you go 1 protein for all of your protein for those 3 days, you can get really sick of chicken. So what I've done is I have about 40 to 50% chicken, and then another about 30% of my protein in beef. And then I supplement with some extra protein here, and there's some protein within the nut butters that I use and things like that. All right, so be careful when you're adding all these up. Try to have as basic protein as you can, and then supplement with some smaller increments of protein along the way. All right, sticking with the theme of super basic, we're just gonna take these chicken breasts, lay them out. What you wanna do is make sure they're very similar thickness. You can use like a meat mallet or something to kind of squish down the thicker parts, but again, we're going super simple, just like this. So laying these out nice and even. I have them on a piece of tin foil, and then all I'm gonna do is grab a little bit of avocado oil and slightly just drizzle it on, rub it on, flip it over. Again, I have the oven preheated to 450. We're gonna throw these in after I put a little bit of seasoning on for about 18 minutes. And that's just because I like to cook the chicken a little bit more rather than a little bit less. Don't forget to wash your hands. All right, super basic seasoning. Put on a little bit of salt. And just a little bit of minced garlic. All right, pretty crazy, right? All this extra special super secret sauce. But I recommend keeping your chicken very basic when you're cooking it or how you cook it. I'd stay away from marinades just because in the future, what you can do is when you have super basic tasting chicken and you mix it with the other vegetables and everything, you can just spice it up with different hot sauces or sauces like chipotle, chili garlic, sweet habanero. So you can mix that in with whether you're rice or broccoli or anything, and that can help with just changing it up without having to make multiple batches of chicken where it's like barbecue chicken and things like that. Throwing that in the oven and baking that. Next is going to be the steak. All right, for the steak, we're gonna get just a little more fancy. So we're gonna pan fry the steak, but also we're gonna saute some onions and green peppers with some unsalted butter and mix that all together. And we'll be able to use some of this onion pepper mix to also mix in with the chicken if we want to kind of spice that up as well. So I'm just gonna cut these up and then we'll start to get that started. I might actually make it out of cutting these onions without crying. All right, cut all these up. Now we're talking about carbs and fats, now that we're going into some of the veggies and everything like that. So we, again, multiplied our daily macros for both carbs and fat by 3 because we're doing 3 days of meal prep. And what we do is we have them, I have a lot of freezer bags that I'll microwave and use later. But then also to get enough fat in, we have some butter that we're gonna be cooking with that we all count towards it. So I allotted myself 7 tablespoons of butter for cooking and later on in the week and everything like that. As well as, again, we have our supplements, our nut butters and everything that all have some fat in between, as well as some avocados that I'm gonna cut in half and eat those with some of the meals. All right, so taking about 2 tablespoons of butter and then all these veggies. All right, now that I have the veggies on, I'm just gonna prep some of my microwavable or oven meals. So I love sweet potatoes and tater tots. So sweet potato tots is my go-to carb of choice to meal prep with. Obviously, they're also very easy to divide up into a few meals. So I just have my oven prepped and I'm just gonna start preheating these as well. All right, so started preheating another pan. I have my butter ready to go in once it's warm enough, and then season some of the meat. Again, super basic, just going with some salt and garlic. Nothing crazy. Obviously, if you have a special seasoning or something that you like to do that. But again, I like to be super boring with it and then flavor it up depending on what mood I'm in later on in the week. I don't want to commit to like a barbecue or a teriyaki steak, because if I get sick of it, I'll end up skipping a meal or buying something different. All right, so I'm just gonna slide this into the hot pan and the butter, and we'll get this cooking. And don't forget to wash your hands. All right, that's about 18 minutes for the chicken. I recommend taking it out, putting it on a hot plate or the stove, letting it sit to cool down and lock in all those juices. If you have a thermometer, you can always check the temperature and make sure it's in the safe range. I've done this a few times, so I'm pretty comfortable and confident with how well those are cooked. So I'm just gonna let those sit here, and then we're gonna go in, start microwaving the veggies. You can just get these bags, whole green beans, cauliflower rice. These don't have very many carbs. It's good like filler volume, as well as just all the vitamins and everything that it has in there. And then you can also split up some of the berries and stuff, but I typically save the berries for the breakfasts that I use some oatmeal mixed with some berries and some of that almond butter, and that's how I start working in the rest of this stuff. As well as with the greens. Sometimes I'll have it for breakfast with some eggs, other times I'll have it with the steak, and I just kind of grab handfuls and plop it on there. I'm not too concerned with eating too much spring mix, you know? All right, while everything's finishing up, I'd like to go over something that I personally like to do. You don't have to do it, but I like to short myself on all of the protein, carbohydrates, and fats that I have per the meal prep for the 3 days, just in case I get bored or I want to wait a day or skip a day and go out to eat, or we have a party planned or things like that. So I have some flexibility in that. If you aren't someone who does that, then I recommend trying to stick as close to the grams of protein, carbs, and fats that you have. And then from there, just know that those free online sources or whoever gives you those numbers, however you get them, just know that is a place to start, and you have to adjust from there depending on what you're doing each week, kind of how your body is responding to that volume of calories and that balance and everything. Some people may need to lean a little bit more towards protein. Some people may feel like they need way more carbs, which I think most people would love to have more carbs, but limiting that can be very important. All right, so for this part, I don't really have much of it planned out. I kind of just know that I would rather eat green beans for only like 1 or 2 days. So kind of split it up. I have enough for 3, so just kind of move those down. And looks like I'm eating 3 days of green beans. If you want to plan this out and try to figure out it exactly, but I just know that if I microwave all of these and then distribute them throughout all of these meals, so having those 3 meals a day, whether I'm eating them in 2 servings or 1, that I know that I'll be getting all that I need. I'm not super concerned with the exact weight of each, because remember, this is the basic meal prep. This isn't like weighing, measuring every single little thing. So try not to stress about how much. You can eat all the green beans at one time, make it easy, and then from there start tweaking things, start adding of like, oh, I want to make a chili with this protein and carb balance and everything like that. Try not to just like have like 30 recipes that you have to somehow puzzle piece into this thing. Start super basic and then add from there. If your sauté veggies are burning pretty quickly and not cooking fast enough, you can add just a little bit of water, and that'll help. Beef with my green beans. Again, thinking about eating this in like 3 different meals with my green beans. So I'll probably want rice and steak on one of them, so I'll wait until one of my rice is ready. And I'm just portioning this out, knowing that I need to eat them over 3 days. All right, so I don't recommend doing all of the steak in one day or in one meal. You just kind of balance it out. And you'll notice on some of these, you'll see only like protein and carbs. So you just see the rice and beans, or steak and beans and everything like that. I have avocados that I'm gonna eat with this, so I just don't wanna cut those up, because if I cut them up and put them in the container, they'll get brown or soggy or weird and everything like that. So try to be smart with how quickly things can deteriorate once you start cutting them up. The chicken, I'm just kind of cutting them in half and then shoving them in there. If you have bigger containers than I do, then you can just leave them whole. They'll probably stay a little bit juicier that way, but just know that all these are just going to be microwaved again anyway, so, you know. All right, and that's pretty much it. I still have some veggies to microwave and everything like that, but the last thing I'll recommend is, if you are batch cooking like this, I recommend trying to get a bigger container, just in case you have some extras or some things that don't really mix well together, like putting the sweet potatoes in here. Just to save, you can just batch cook, whether that's the protein, the carbs, put it in one container, and then you can draw from that. So leaving the portions out like this, and then I can quickly add something to this from a container and then be out the door, just in terms of speed. If you have a lot of time, then probably the best way to do it is have 3 or 4 big containers of a bunch of food, and then you can add the combo from there. But again, you really have to commit to a flavor of chicken if you want to have those big batches like that. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.